All right, welcome back to the Rollout. I'm Jeff Pratt, and joining me as always is Trent Henrich, who is just adjusting his camera. Trent, how are you doing on this fine Friday afternoon?
It's a bit gloomy. It's a bit rainy, but I'm hoping. We're having more games this week. We weren't sure after all those COVID, cases that arose that we weren't sure we're going to have another week, but we're here. So
Yeah, it's definitely been a roller coaster of a week, obviously, with the Colts coming out with a couple of positive cases that turned out to be false positives. Obviously, Jim Irsay was the one who broke that news on Twitter himself, so that was kind of interesting. And then, unfortunately, the Patriots have some actual positive cases again this week, but I think it's just one confirmed as of now. The second one wasn't confirmed, and as of now, that game on Sunday between the Patriots and the Broncos is still scheduled to be played. Adam Schefter reported that all the players have been notified that it's on per usual. So until we hear otherwise, despite the Patriots having another COVID scare, that game's going to be played.
yeah, and Belichick was smart too because he decided not to have in-person practice. He kind of just gave him the day off and make sure to prevent any more spreading of COVID.
Yeah, I agree. Hopefully all the future tests come back negative for the Patriots and they were able to avoid another issue. This game is going to happen. So why don't we jump straight into these week 6 picks? Just to recap where we're at right now. Trent, we both went 9 for 14 last week. So we've started to pick things up. We're both confidently batting over 65% right now. I am 52 out of the possible 77 games correct. And Trent, you were one behind at 51 out of 77. So we'll kick things off with the Tennessee Titans coming off a not shocking, but surprisingly dominant victory over the Buffalo Bills, which not a lot of us saw coming, but I was happy to see it personally, being a fan of the New England Patriots in the AFC East. They are taking on the Houston Texans, who are winless no more, finally getting a important victory over the Jacksonville Jaguars last week, which both of us predicted was going to happen now that Bill O'Brien is gone. Trent, who are you taking in this game?
Yeah, I was actually kind of shocked how dominant they looked against the Bills Titans last week. Everything was clicking, and they were stopping Josh Allen. Josh Allen threw one silly pick, but the Titans looked legit. They definitely garnered more respect for me after that win. And having said that, I like the Texans a lot. I still I'm still high on Watson, but the Titans are at home. And I don't know. I think they're going to squeak this game out by maybe a field goal. So I'm going to go with the Titans.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think the Titans, I think it's going to be not as close. I think it's hard for me to imagine this game being closer than the Buffalo game was, though Houston's coming off a win, as you said, Trent, and Brandon Cooks finally showcased his abilities. He was finally the guy that Bill O'Brien brought him in to be. Unfortunately, Bill O'Brien just wasn't there to see the results turn out the way he was hoping. But yeah, hopefully this is something that Cooks can build off of, continue to build positive momentum. Will Fuller, Randall Cobb can continue to connect with Deshaun Watson. For me, it's all about that offensive line. If they can stop Jadeveon Clowney and company from getting to Deshaun Watson, because that's something they haven't been good at so far this year. And as we saw last game against Buffalo, if you let the Titans get to your quarterback, they're more than likely going to win that game.
Yeah, I think this is almost a revenge game for Clowney, too, because this is his old team. This is who drafted him, and he's no longer there. So, he's going to be wanting to play at his best this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely agree. All right, so we both take the Titans there. Moving on, we have a matchup between the Baltimore Ravens, who I foolishly picked against last week, took the Bengals. That one didn't turn out too well for me, Trent. I know you were texting me and trash talking me about that game, but we'll just move on. Baltimore, you've earned my respect for now. Taking on the Philadelphia Eagles, who, man, still look pretty ugly at this point in the season. So yeah, just moving on, Trent, who are you going to take in that game?
I'm going to ride the Ravens. I've had a few weeks where I didn't take them. You've had a few weeks you didn't take them. Every time we don't take them, they win. So, yeah, I'm going to roll with the Ravens here. It'd be interesting to see if the Eagles do lose this week, if they consider a switch a quarterback. They did draft Hurts so high. And he's played a snap or two, but those snaps haven't been pretty. But I'd like to see someone else get a shot and see if they can turn things around in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I agree. Carson Wentz, he's leading the NFL in picks right now, or at least he's tied or up there in that conversation. So he has absolutely been not playing well. And, looking at the other side, Lamar Jackson hasn't been playing particularly well himself either. And neither have the Ravens running backs. That's been a really weird situation where Mark Ingram has been getting a ton of carries. And it's almost like Harbaugh has been refusing to give J.K. Dobbins the ball, despite the fact that every time he touches it, he significantly outproduces Mark Ingram. So I know a lot of people are very frustrated there, especially Dobbins fantasy owners, because this Ravens team, we know their identity is to run the ball, but they just haven't been producing from a fantasy perspective up to what people were expecting this year. Now, if you look at the one pass catcher that has been consistently producing on that team, it's Mark Andrews. Obviously, he wasn't perfect the first couple of weeks of the season, but he's really picked it up over the last couple of games, and he's the one guy Lamar Jackson has consistently been finding. On the other side of the ball, though, at tight end, man, what is going on with Zach Ertz? Trent, I know that you were especially high on him heading into this year, and I can't really blame you because looking at this Philadelphia Eagles team, he looked like by far the most consistent pass catcher, or like he was going to be that guy for them this year. So what do you think is going on there?
I mean, I don't know. It's interesting because when Goddard was there, I feel like they were both playing at a higher level, and then when Goddard hit the IR, Zach Ertz kind of just fell off a bit. I mean, it can't be a connection issue because Wentz and Ertz have been playing together for a long time now. I mean, it could be a thing of age. He's not a young guy. He's been playing in the league for a while. He's kind of banged up. You're right though. I was pretty high on Ertz because the Eagles had no targets, and right now Ertz is just not playing up to his potential, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. All right, moving on. I'm going to take the Eagles in that game. Not Eagles, sorry, the Ravens. No. I'm not taking the Eagles. I don't think I've taken the Eagles once so far this year, and I'm going to stick to that trend. I'm taking Baltimore in this game, following what you said, Trent. Moving on, we have the Atlanta Falcons taking on the Minnesota Vikings, coming off a heartbreaking loss against the Seattle Seahawks, where DK Metcalf proved he was an absolute superstar, something that, both you and I saw coming heading into this year, but it was good to see happen. But anyway, we're not talking about the Seahawks here. We're talking about the Falcons and the Vikings. Trent, who are you taking?
Well, the Falcons have broken my heart enough. I've decided not to take them last week. I'm going to stick with that trend, even though I wasn't huge on Kirk Cousins. I wasn't very high on him, but he's looked good. He started to connect with Jefferson and Thielen in the last 2 weeks. I think if he continues doing that, even if Dalvin Cook is out, Madison will fill in very well. And, I mean, when the Vikings played last week against Seattle, they played a weak secondary, and they did well against them. And this Falcons secondary is also weak and banged up. I think they'll be able to find some gaps and pull out a win.
Yeah, Trent, you mentioned Dalvin Cook. He actually was ruled out about an hour ago with a groin issue. So Alexander Madison, we've seen this before. He is more than capable of stepping in and handling that large workload, especially against, as you mentioned, this weak Falcons defense. I'm not really worried about him, and I know that fantasy owners who picked him up off of waivers, or if you were lucky enough to handcuff him to Cook this year, they're going to be happy with his production this week as well as Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. Against this horrible Falcons secondary, I think you have to fire both of them up. There's a chance that they could both go for over 100 scrimmage yards again, which is what they've done 2 times so far this year. And I'm going to take the Vikings again, just for pretty much the reasons you said too, Trent. I think they're a much more complete football team right now. Atlanta is still really searching for their identity, although they will have Julio Jones back this week without an injury designation. I know a lot of people were worried about his hamstring. Whether that is still a problem is yet to be seen, but Julio owners for fantasy, you can fire him back up this week because at least he appears to be much healthier than the last couple of weeks. But moving on, Trent, we haven't disagreed yet. I have a feeling we might in this game. It's the Cleveland Browns taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. In my opinion, this is one of the closest matchups of the week to pick because both of these teams have been surprisingly good this year, especially the Browns have surprised a lot of people. Trent, I'll toss it over to you. Who you're taking?
I may be pulling a move that is not allowed, but at the point of this recording, I think where we at today's Friday. It's Friday in the afternoon. There is a big question mark about Baker Mayfield starting or not because of his banged up ribs. That for me is a huge factor because I'm trying to think of who their backup is right now. It might be Case Keenum. If
It's someone like that, yeah.
I think it might be Case. I want the Browns in this game if Baker starts, but if Baker's not starting, I don't see them winning this game. I guess to be safe, I'll just take the Steelers just because his Baker Mayfield's is real question mark right now for them to start. He's questionable. I think it's gonna be a game time decision. So I'll take the Steelers to be safe, but I think if Baker starts, that the Browns will win.
All right, so no, we'll allow that then. If we'll say, because I'll do the same thing. If Baker starts, I'm taking the Browns, but if he doesn't, I'll take the Steelers there as well. And I think that's fair for
Yeah.
us to say that. And another question mark for Cleveland is Odell Beckham Jr. is questionable with an illness. It's not COVID, but it's a potential pink eye situation I've heard, which is definitely a weird one for him. But yeah, there's a chance they might not have him as well. But if Baker suits up, even without OBJ, I think that there's a good chance they can pull this game off in Pittsburgh. Although the Steelers have been really tough this year, I think this is going to be a great matchup, assuming everyone plays. But if Baker plays, both of us are taking the Browns, and if he doesn't, we'll both take the Steelers.
And I can confirm that Case Keenum is back at quarterback. So is Drew Stanton's third string. I would assume Case Keenum would get the start this week.
Yeah, I would too. I mean, Case Keenum, we know he's capable of leading his team to wins and deep playoff runs, but at the same time, it's Case Keenum. So
It's not against a weak defense. The Steelers' defense is legit. So just coming off to play your first game against the Steelers in a big rivalry game, I wouldn't be too trusting in Case Keenum this week.
Yeah, I agree. All right, moving on, we have the Cincinnati Bengals, who are coming off a horrid loss to the Baltimore Ravens, taking on a banged-up Indianapolis Colts with a quarterback in Philip Rivers, who also is really starting to show his age, which I think is the theme of this year so far. We've seen, early on, Tom Brady looked like he might have been, but he's somewhat turned it around. Drew Brees has been another person who's suffering from that, it seems. Philip Rivers just doesn't look like he did with LA over the past couple of years. So far, at least, he struggled to connect with his targets like T.Y. Hilton. Trent, I'll toss it over to you. Who are you taking?
I wish the Bengals performed better last week because it's harder to take them in this game if they had just maybe even put up a touchdown last week, but they didn't even accomplish that. I think for that reason, and because I watched that game, it was not pretty. I'm gonna go with the Colts to be safe here. I think the Bengals have the ability to win this game, but they really need to figure their things out.
Yeah, and I'm going to take Cincinnati in this game just because what you said. I think that they have the ability to win this game. This Colts defense is really banged up. They may be without Darius Leonard for this game, which is a big loss for them if he's not there. And Philip Rivers hasn't been himself, and neither really has Jonathan Taylor. He hasn't been the guy that people have expected him to be when Marlon Mack went down with the Achilles injury, season-ending injury earlier in the season, and people are expecting Taylor to just come in and be the dominant workhorse that he was in Wisconsin. Now he's receiving the touches. He just hasn't turned it into the production that we were expecting behind that pretty solid Colts offensive line. So obviously there's still time for all of that to turn around. But I like Cincinnati. I'm a big Joe Mixon guy. Trent knows that. He had a phenomenal game last week. I say that sarcastically just to try to annoy Trent because he kept calling me out over it. I think he had 2.8 yards per carry, something like that. They kept feeding him the ball though. So Joe Mixon fantasy owners, there's positive takeaways from this game because we know how bad Cincinnati's offensive line is, and he was more involved in the passing game. But moving besides Joe Mixon, I think that this is a bounce back game for the Bengals in general, and pretty much a statement win for them, and maybe more of a statement loss for Indianapolis, who a lot of people were expecting them to be contenders after they came out, started hot, but that may not be the case for the rest of the season, especially if they can't stay healthy. All right. So that's the first game we've disagreed on so far, Trent. Moving on, we have one that I think is really hard to get a read on. It's the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Detroit Lions. Sorry, not singular. There's plural of them. But I think that, I know, Trent, you're really high in Jacksonville and Gardner Minshew, but DJ Chark is once again banged up, didn't play well last week. James Robinson's coming off his first real dud of the season, I'd say, which is fair. Everyone's given that. No one was expecting him to be the guy he's been so far. And on the other side, the Detroit Lions, they've been all right. this year, and they're gonna be fully healthy. I think Marvin Jones is back for them this game. So this Lions team, they have a lot of talent. They haven't necessarily been able to put it together historically throughout the last couple seasons. Who are you taking in this game, Trent?
Yeah, I'm going to go against my guy this week. I'm going to go against Minshew and Chark, and I'm going to go with the Lions. A big reason behind that was I was surprised how well the Steelers came off of that early bye week. They weren't really expecting, and they played great. I think the Lions may be in a similar circumstance where they don't have the toughest matchup, and coming off that bye week, they're really going to excel. I like Stafford. Galladay is going to be at full health. Marvin Jones needs to get more involved, and they need to figure out, who their running back is in this offense. I don't know if they ever will figure out who their running back is. If it's APs and they get touches, Swift, whoever might be carrying on Johnson. I like the Lions though this week. I'm high on Stafford, and this Jags team is good, but they're young. They have the advantage of being home. I think it's a good game. I think the Lions win probably by around 3 or 6 points.
Yeah, I'll make this quick. I agree with everything you said there, Trent. I think that this Lions team is just top to bottom more talented. And so far, we've seen a lot of these games that are close. The more talented team just is able to pull it out. As you mentioned, Kenny Galladay, I think this bye week's going to be huge for him because he's still banged up. He's been banged up the last couple of weeks, but he got another full week to get healthy. We know how capable he is of being the guy in their offense. He led the NFL in touchdowns last year for wide receivers and everyone else. But yeah, I'm going to take the Lions in this one. It's just kind of hard for me to pick the Jaguars after how they performed last week. So we're both going to go Detroit there. Moving on, we have the Bears, who broke Trent's heart last week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, taking on the Carolina Panthers, who have been pretty hot the last couple of games themselves. So I think this has potential to be a pretty interesting matchup. Trent, I'll toss it to you first. I know you want to talk about how much you love Chicago in this one. Go for it.
I'll be going with the Panthers. I like Nick Foles at quarterback for the Bears. I still don't like the Bears that much. And the Panthers have surprised me week in and week out. I always say, I don't think they're going to win this week, and they pull it out. They're at home. I think this would be the last week without CMC. I think CMC is going to come back next week.
I think week 8, actually, they just reported. So two more weeks of Mike Davis. Yeah, that ankle injury was worse than people were expecting for CMC.
Yeah, Mike Davis has done a good job filling in, and Teddy Bridgewater surprised me. I mean, he's really looked good. He's just got to get, DJ Moore consistently more involved in this offense. Their defense is pretty strong. And it's going to be a low-scoring game, in my opinion. The over-under set at 44.5, and that makes sense to me just because I don't think the Bears are going to put up a lot of points, and they have a good defense. I don't think the Panthers are that much of a high-powered offense, so I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. Panthers squeak it out, and that may not be the most entertaining game as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that Carolina is going to take this game. As much as a fan of Chicago as I am, Trent, I've been repping the Bears in a lot of games this year, and it's turned out so far. But I am going to take Carolina in this one. I love Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Two Gloves finally started to come to play the last couple of weeks. DJ Moore had a great game. Hopefully that's something he can build off of. And man, talk about Robbie Anderson. He was a guy that both of us highlighted as a potential guy to be fantasy relevant in this offense. And as of now, he's wide receiver 7, I think, in PPR league. So he has been a force for this offense, and he's been the number one guy for Teddy Bridgewater. I know that he's pretty much putting up the numbers that people were hoping DJ Moore would put up this year. And I think that's probably just not realistic anymore, especially with CMC set to come back in a few weeks and take over a couple of receiving duties there for Carolina. But yeah, I'm going to take the Panthers in this one as well. Although if we're talking fantasy, I like David Montgomery in this game. Carolina's been bad against the run so far this year. I like Robbie Anderson. I like DJ Moore again. Obviously, Allen Robinson's become a must-start guy. He's seeing like 12 to 14 targets per game. Nick Foles, that's pretty much the only guy he's looking to. He'll look to him at times for like 5 or 6 straight passes and then go to Jimmy Graham once, maybe just to throw off the defense. So yeah, I'm going to go with Carolina in this game, but I think it's going to be close, and I wouldn't be shocked if the Bears pull out another victory on the way to clinching their division. but all right, moving on. We have the Washington football team taking on the New York Giants. Man, I'd be shocked if this game gets 1 million viewers. To be honest with you, this is the definition of the NFC least here at its finest. Trent, which one of these teams is going to be less worse this week?
I think the real question is who wants a better shot at Trevor Lawrence, honestly.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah.
That may be where the direction this game is going. And my answer is I honestly don't even know. I'm going to go with the Redskins, and I don't even know who's going to play quarterback because I still think Haskins should be the starter. Kyle Allen kind of got banged up last week. And then Alex Smith, he made his comeback last week as well. So we've seen 3 quarterbacks in the last 2 weeks for this team. We don't even know who's starting. The Giants looked decent against the Cowboys last week, which is surprising to me. But I think that this Redskins team has more firepower on the offensive side than the Giants. I like Antonio Gibson. I like Terry McLaurin. I like some pieces they have in their offensive scheme. And they also have Chase Young on defense. I'm going to say the Redskins win in a very uneventful game that I'm not going to watch much time of unless I'm watching Red Zone or something because this game is just not interesting to me.
Yeah, I hear everything you're saying. I'm going to take the Giants in this one just because, as you mentioned, they did put up a good fight against the Dak Prescott-less Cowboys. Prayers up for Dak Prescott, by the way. That was a really unfortunate situation. Very similar to Gordon Hayward's injury a couple of years ago for the Celtics, but he had successful surgery. The timeline set 4 to 6 months. Hopefully he's back by the start for next year, and hopefully Jerry Jones takes care of him in terms of a contract, whether it's a 1-year prove-it deal or whatever. I'd love to see him come back for Dallas and put together a strong season next year. In the meantime, though, Trent's guy, the Red Rocket, has taken over. I just realized you're wearing my shirt too. Moving on. I'm going to take the Giants in this one. I love the way Darius Slayton's been playing this year. He's become the guy that a lot of people were hoping but not really expecting with Golden Tate, Sterling Shepard, Evan Engram in that receiving core. The rest of those guys have flopped. However, Devontae Freeman last week started to show his potential, scored 2 touchdowns, racked up, I think, 60-ish yards on the ground for New York. And I just think, man, I'd be shocked if either of these teams get to 20 this week, but I'm going to take the Giants in what is going to be a horribly boring affair. All right. Moving on, we have the game that is hopefully going to be played, was set up to be played last week, and then the Patriots had COVID issues, as we mentioned earlier. They're having some again this week, but as of now, this game is on for Sunday. In my opinion, worst case scenario, it gets moved to Monday or Tuesday. I think it is happening this week, as long as New England can control this recent COVID spread. It is obviously Denver taking on the New England Patriots. Trent, who are you taking?
Yeah, I'm going with the Pats here. This Broncos team is still really banged up, even if the Pats could be without some players because of COVID. As long as they have Newton, I'm pretty confident in this team. Like the Pats at home, and yeah, I just hope this game happens.
Yeah, I do too, and I'm taking the Pats. I know that the spread right now, I think, is -9.5 for New England. I think they're going to cover. I think that Denver, as you mentioned, they're so banged up. Still to be decided whether Melvin Gordon will be playing in this game. And in my opinion, that's ridiculous. If I'm Vic Fangio, there's no way I'm letting him suit up after picking up a DUI this weekend. That is unacceptable, in my opinion. And Philip Lindsay seems like he's ready to go. So I think that this is the chance they should give him to reclaim his spot atop Denver's backfield, at least for this week, and let Melvin Gordon sit a week and think about his actions. But besides that, you look at Denver's other weapons. Jerry Jeudy is going to be lining up against Stephon Gilmore, who returned from COVID protocol. So that's going to be a wash for him. Unfortunately, I like Jeudy. He just hasn't been able to produce up to expectations, at least compared to his counterpart, CeeDee Lamb, who has been a superstar so far. Obviously, that might change now that Andy Dalton's under center in Dallas. That's yet to be seen. who knows what's going to happen there. But yeah, I'm going to take the Patriots in this game. I'm really excited to see what Damian Harris especially can do. Trent, I know you've been trying to get him in one of our high school leagues off my fantasy team for a while now. I think I'm going to let it ride out for now, see what he does. You might just have to give me, I don't know, who are your running backs? Who are your running backs in that league?
Aaron Jones and Josh Jacobs.
All right, I'll give you him straight up for Josh Jacobs.
I'll have to think about it.
Yeah. Have your people contact my people.
Of course.
All right, moving on. So we're both taking the Pats there. Moving on to the game that I picked last week, the Miami Dolphins dominating the 49ers. Trent, the Dolphins are your team, but you didn't take them, and I did, and they dominated. So now I say we're both in the same boat, being on Miami's bandwagon. Pretty much, we're both equal Dolphins fans here.
No, heck no. I'm the conductor of the train. You're at the caboose.
I must have been able to move up after that pick, though. No? I can't even get in business class?
No, you're not even in business class. You know what? You're like in the baggage compartment. That's where you're at right now. You're
baggage compartment.
You're sitting back there.
All right. Well, moving on, this Miami Dolphins team, who Trent and I like a lot this year, equally taking on the New York Jets, who have been absolutely putrid. That's another team that's going to be contending for Trevor Lawrence this year. I think that they might actually be the favorite to get him at this point. Trent, who you're taking? And I already know who you're taking, but let's say why you're taking the Dolphins.
Before I even get there, you have no idea how much flack I get after I chose the Dolphins to be my sleeper this year, to make a playoff run, all of this. You were on totally different levels than me with the Dolphins. You wish you were here with the Dolphins. You're off the screen.
They're still not making the playoffs. They have a tough schedule down the stretch, but they've been much better than I initially expected. But, I was smart enough to recognize a matchup that they were going to take advantage of, and you clearly didn't. So,
hey, you can jump off the train if you don't think they're getting to the playoffs, because they're making to the playoffs.
Well, you can jump off the Josh Allen train if you want now. I know you jumped on late.
He looked kind of bad last week, though. So
yeah, we'll see. All right, so we're both taking the Dolphins here. I personally was very happy to see the Dolphins not pick up Le'Veon Bell, because I love what Myles Gaskin's done for this team. I think he absolutely deserves the chance. Take his case to be their running back in the future. I'm not certain if that will be the case come next season when that starts. But as of now, I'm enjoying seeing what he can do. So, yeah, we're both taking Miami in this game. It's kind of a no-brainer. I'm pretty sure the Dolphins are favored by 9.5 points here, too. So, at least they were last night when I did another podcast. And I think we were saying that is the first time I've seen the Dolphins favored by that many points in a while. So hopefully they come through, get the dub, and come through and cover the spread. So moving on from that game, we have a primetime game. I think this is a Monday night one. The Green Bay Packers taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Aaron Rodgers versus Tom Brady, the two greatest quarterbacks of our generation, facing off. I'd say so. Trent, I know you might have hesitated there. I think that they're probably the two, at least the most talented quarterbacks of our generation.
Yeah,
Drew Brees maybe deserves to be in that conversation too, but talent-wise, I might give the edge to Rodgers there. But anyway, putting that debate aside, this should be a phenomenal matchup, really fun to watch. Who are you taking?
It's hard to pick against this Packers team, man. They have looked honestly like the best team in the NFL, to be quite honest with you. They've killed it on offense and defense, and I believe they're still undefeated. I think it's going to stay that way. Even though it's at Tampa, I'm going to roll with Rodgers. He proved to me when he lost Lazard, he lost Devontae Adams the last game, and no hesitation, started using Robert Tonyan for 3 touchdowns. Like, it doesn't matter who it is, as long as they can somewhat get open, he will find them and get them the ball. And Aaron Jones has been good. The defense has been solid. I'm riding the Packers.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you there, Trent. I think every week now, as the Packers build momentum, we reflect upon last year how we said they looked like the worst 14-2 team we had ever seen. And now they look amazing. They look much better than they did last year, just like a much more complete football team. I think the emergence of Jamal Williams last week is going to help them a lot down the stretch, too. Just prove that Aaron Jones doesn't have to be the guy. Obviously, I know fantasy owners want him to be the guy, but Jamal Williams showed that he has a lot of pass catching upside. He's more than capable of handling a significant workload in this offense. So I think that that is just good for Green Bay to add another weapon when they haven't or they've been struggling with injuries so far this year. It's going to be great for them to get Devontae Adams back. Hopefully he and Rodgers pick right up where they left off before Adams' injury. And yeah, I'm going to take the Packers in this one. The Bucks are coming in a little banged up. I do think both Mike Evans and Godwin are going to be available for the first time in a couple of weeks. Leonard Fournette is going to be coming back too, so they'll probably be at full strength, but I still like Green Bay here. All right, moving on, we have the San Francisco 49ers suffered a really bad loss to my Miami Dolphins, taking on the LA Rams. All right, I'll stop with the Dolphins jokes. But this one's probably going to be a good game too. You know that San Francisco, they're mad about being upset. Jimmy Garoppolo is back. He said earlier today that he's as healthy as he's ever been with his ankle. Whether that actually makes a difference, I have no idea, because we've established he's not a franchise quarterback by now. But yeah, he'll be back for them after being benched halfway through the Dolphins game last week. Both these teams, I believe, are going to be at full strength. Deebo Samuel has looked all right for the 49ers so far. Hasn't been quite what we were expecting, but that's probably because of the emergence of Brandon Ayuk in this offense. So all of that being said, Trent, who are you taking?
Yeah, honestly, I'm going to call BS on the Niners here last week. They benched Jimmy Garoppolo because he was not playing well. They were not benching him because of his safety, in my opinion. There was nothing from that first half that showed that he wasn't playing like he normally would, as in like his body, his movement looked completely normal to me. He just looked awful. CJ Beathard looked better. I still like him as a quarterback. And having said that, Jimmy G is starting. I don't want to pick him. I'll take the Rams, even though the Niners are at home. The Niners defense is still banged up. And, I mean, we've seen some flashes of good football from this Rams team this season. They still have a lot of weapons, high-powered offense, good defense. I'll roll with the Rams.
Yeah, I'm going to roll with the Rams too. Trent, you know, before the season, I said that I didn't think the 49ers were going to make the playoffs. Now, obviously, they've suffered a couple of key injuries. Nick Bosa, Solomon Thomas, both done for the year. I think at this point, it's pretty much safe to say that they won't be making the playoffs unless they go on a miraculous run with this undermanned roster. And that's not really their fault. Obviously, losing those key guys to injuries sucks. But it's definitely eye-opening for them that Jimmy Garoppolo is not the answer at quarterback. And they have plenty of weapons. They should be able to attack with their passing weapons with Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk. Out there. Raheem Mostert, Tevin Coleman, Jerick McKinnon are all capable receivers out of the backfield as well. But Jimmy G, he's clearly just not a major part of their game plan, and they need a QB who can be. So moving forward, I don't like the 49ers in a lot of games looking at their schedule for the rest of the season. Definitely don't like him here. I think Darrell Henderson, I was hesitant on him heading into last week's game because he looked horrible against the Giants, and he shut me up real quick. He had a great game against Washington, scored a pair of touchdowns, clearly retook his spot atop the Rams backfield, and that looks like it's going to continue this week. So fire him up against a banged up 49ers defense. And yeah, I'm going to roll with the Rams as well. All right, we are now into our final two games of the week. We have a good one here. The Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Buffalo Bills, who are looking for redemption. Trent, who are you taking?
Side note, the Chiefs did just add Le'Veon Bell this week, which will be a factor this season. It's going to be interesting to see how that backfield pans out. You know, Clyde's been pretty dominant this season, but as Jeff was talking to me earlier, mentioned that Clyde could work on his blocking abilities. Le'Veon's an established blocker, and he's established veteran in this league. He's going to have a role in this offense, and he's going to add. He's just another weapon for this Chiefs team than Pat Mahomes. And I don't think he really played this week. I could be wrong, but
yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think he's going to pass COVID protocol in time. And even if he did, I wouldn't expect them to play him that many snaps, if any at all.
Yeah, because he needs to still learn their playbook, their play style, that type of thing. But he will be a factor for weeks to come. Even though he's not playing this week, I'm still gonna roll with the Chiefs. I was pretty disappointed with how the Bills looked last week. I was really high on them going into last week, and they just got demolished. Both these teams actually surprisingly lost last week, which is pretty incredible. I think the Chiefs get the best of the Bills this week, though.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Side note, Trent, in our high school league, I'm facing someone who was starting the Bills defense and they needed 2 points to win, and Buffalo ended up scoring -3 against the Titans. So that was great for me. I liked watching that. But yeah, I think it definitely doesn't inspire confidence in me to take Buffalo this week. I do think that the Bills are going to turn things around. But as a Patriots fan, I'm really excited about the prospect of heading into this week and having a chance to be on par with Buffalo in terms of losses. Which is what we expect them to do if New England's able to play. We think they're going to take on the Broncos, beat them, and I think the Chiefs are going to, they're looking for revenge. They're coming off a bad loss against the Raiders as well. So that's something that we haven't mentioned. Obviously, Buffalo's loss may have been ugly, but you could argue the Chiefs' loss was uglier because the Raiders, they were undermanned, but Derek Carr and Josh Jacobs found a way to win. Pretty much. So that was definitely a tough loss for Kansas City. And I think that this Chiefs team is probably going to be more willing to bounce back and more ready to bounce back than Buffalo. I do think that they're going to be without Sammy Watkins. He didn't practice again today, but that's not really a key difference maker for them. I think if anything, it opens up more opportunity for Mecole Hardman to see the ball, and I love him as a dynamic playmaker in this offense. I'd like to see him get more involved. But yeah, all right, we both take Kansas City there. Moving in to the final game of the week, it's the Arizona Cardinals taking on the Red Rocket-led Dallas Cowboys. This is an interesting one. Not sure if I can get a great read on it either because neither of these teams have played up to expectations so far this year. Obviously, the Cardinals are still have a winning record. Same can't be said about the Cowboys, but Kyler Murray hasn't played as well as I would hope he had, or at least over the last couple of games. And who knows what this offense is going to look like with Andy Dalton under center. All that being said, who are you taking in the final matchup of Week 6, Trent?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few things to note here. First, this is not the way I wanted to see the Red Rifle become the starting quarterback of this football team. I'm glad to see Dak is in high spirits. He posted some pictures on Instagram or social media, and he's got a big smile on his face. And he's gonna be back. He's gonna do rehab and therapy, and he'll be back ready to go. Having said that, the Red Rifle, I'm not picking against him. You're silly too. This guy's the best. I said he was going to start this season, and I said that he did start, that the Cowboys would end up, probably winning the Super Bowl, honestly. So I'm all in on the Cowboys now. The Red Rifles, he's under center. I'm loving it. I'm here for it. I'm sad to see this is the way it happened, but it did, and let's go Red Rifle. Do it for Dak.
All right, Trent, I like this Dallas Cowboys team, but I also love the Cardinals this year, and I'm going to take Arizona just because I'm not sure. I think that this Dallas Cowboys team is going to need an adjustment period with Andy Dalton. One thing I will say is, man, Ezekiel Elliott's fantasy prospects were already high, but after Dak's injury, they have to skyrocket. I think that down the stretch, he probably sees 25-plus touches per game. They're going to lean heavily on him in the run game. I believe in PPR leagues, he's RB3 right now. I think that he's probably the top choice to contend with Alvin Kamara to finish atop as RB1 for the rest of the season by the time it's said and done. Now, if you look at the Cardinals, this is a pretty key game for them. They're in a really tough division. The Seahawks, obviously in the NFC West, are 5-0. The Rams are 4-1. And the Cardinals are 3-2, followed by the Niners sitting below them at 2-3. As we mentioned, they don't really have a great path to the playoffs as of now. But the Cardinals need this win if they're going to stay in the playoff hunt. Obviously, there's still a long season to go, but this is a pretty big one for them because if they lose this game and the Rams pick up a win, being 2 games down in that division, it's going to be tough, even with the expanded playoff format for them. So I think that Arizona comes out angry. I think that they come ready to play. They have a ton of weapons in this offense. Same can be said for the Cowboys, But the difference between this team is that Arizona's defense has been far superior to Dallas's so far this year. They've been great against the run and against the pass, whereas the Cowboys have been letting the Giants and the Browns and every other team stomp all over them this year. So when you have a high-powered offense with Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, Christian Kirk, Larry Fitzgerald, Kenny Drake, and Chase Edmonds, who I think is probably going to see more touches down the stretch now with Kenny Drake playing horribly as he is. This is going to be tough for the Cowboys to stop, and I'm not sure without Dak if they have the firepower to match up with them. Hopefully I'm wrong. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game, but I'm going to take the Cardinals.
I think the real question mark for me in this game is what Kyler Murray do we get? Because we've had weeks of Kyler Murray throwing multiple picks and weeks of Kyler Murray where he doesn't throw any picks and he's running the ball well. I think it's this game really hinges on that factor there because, the QB is the heart and soul of the team. And if the Cowboys end up getting more possessions than the Cardinals, I'm going to feel pretty good about the Cowboys.
Fair enough. All right. So that is going to wrap up our week 6 picks for the NFL season. Trent, we've been doing pretty well so far the last couple of weeks. Hopefully that trend continues here in week 6. And we will be back, as always, next week to wrap up and catch up on our picks from this week and talk about the games for week 7. Stay safe out there, everyone. Have a good weekend. Enjoy some football.